As spring arrives, fluffy Virginia sheep are ready for their spring shearing. Locally produced wool is in high demand, and these Virginia farmers are excited to connect their sheep's coats to consumers' closets.
When I see this shirt, I actually see Kevin the sheep shearer and David at the spinnery and Rabbit who wove the fabric and Pauline who sewed it. And I see a whole family represented by what each shirt brings to it, not counting the sheep that were born and raised here.
Franny Kansteiner runs Gumtree Farm in Loudoun County and says her current farm-to-fashion business had humble beginnings.
When we had children, we got a few sheep from a neighbor, gave us a trio of sheep. And then we were spinning and knitting, and 3 sheep turned into 300 sheep. And then it became a challenge to figure out, well, what to do with all this wool. And so that was incrementally the beginning of the design business.
Now Kansteiner's high-end designs are the focus of fashion-minded customers. She connects with her market through regional retail shows and an on-farm store. She says each piece is a labor of love.
The day I think of a jacket that we would like to make, that's a 2-year timeline, because the lamb has to be born and it grows its wool for a year, and then we shear it, and then we wash it, card it, and comb it, and then it gets spun into yarn, and then it either gets woven and then it gets sewn.
In addition to a feast for the eyes, Kansteiner also sells lamb from her flock. Augusta County shepherd and wool producer Francis Chester Cestari comes from a long line of Italian shepherds and says another selling point for wool products is their longevity.
People love wool, but you have to educate them. They say, well, you can go to your stores and you can buy a synthetic sweater, pay maybe $25, $30, but you're lucky if that sweater will last you 3-4 years. Wool, yeah. You might pay $100 for a machine-made sweater, 100% wool. Handmade, about $150, $200. But that sweater, I got sweaters that are 50 years old, just as good today as what they were back then. So when you depreciate the two, wool is cheaper than synthetics.
Cestari moved his sheep flock to the mountains of Virginia from Long Island, New York in 1968 because of urban sprawl. He says the foundation for high-quality wool and meat is nutrition.
When you got an animal that's producing wool, protein, milk, protein, meat, protein, you best beef up your protein.
He and his family have a retail store for their products and a textile museum that tells the history of creating fabric from wool. Due to a lack of outside infrastructure, Cestari operates his own wool mill.
In 1981, we built a mill. I went up to upstate New York and New England, learned the jargon, learned how to run a mill, hired a couple who've been working there for many years. They came down and we had a mill operating, and it's worked ever since.
Fine fibers is what makes the wool from the sheep breeds that Kansteiner and Cestari raise so desirable for clothing. Another Loudoun County shepherdess's love of wool led her to improve her flock's genetics.
The wool in the neck will be finer and rather coarser down in the breech, in the lower or the upper hind leg. With selective breeding, you can make that fleece astoundingly even from front to back and from head to tail. And then that means when you shear that sheep, you get a really uniform fleece that can be processed the same, spun the same, and is just a pleasure to work with.
Polke is also involved in the expansion of the fiber shed movement, which focuses on local textile production. Virginia is a part of the Chesapeake Fiber Shed.
Our initiatives include a lot of public education, a Sustainable Cloth Challenge where we encourage people to try to create something from within the fiber shed wholly or partially.
Creating locally sourced fabrics and clothing is the passion of each of these shepherds, but they couldn't do it alone.
It's been a building process of a network, which has been challenging, exciting, frustrating, and then hugely rewarding.
Each step of creating wool textiles requires the care and investment of many hands and hooves. By creating warm woolen mittens, cool summer socks, and everything in between, these shepherds and their sheep are keeping the Commonwealth comfortable. For Real Virginia, I'm Elijah Griles.